Hey everyone, and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. It's time to get your calendars out because we essentially know the release date of Battle for Azeroth, and from there we can work backwards to figure out the timeline that leads us up to the expansion. Plus we've got a bunch of information about game systems, including Titan Foraging, class changes, and the 7th Allied race. So when the Battle for Azeroth pre-orders went live, we actually found out that the game would launch on or before the 21st of September 2018. Now the 30th of September is technically the end of Q3, so overall this date makes quite a bit of sense. The reason why they would say that is, I believe, mostly down to requirements when it comes to soliciting a pre-order from people. At least I believe it has been that in the past. But that's kind of our target date, so let's kind of work, from now to then and sort of piece together when this expansion could be coming out. Now, the Battle for Azeroth alpha build was uploaded to the Blizzard patch servers, but it's not actually playable. This does, however, mean that alpha testing should commence very soon, I anticipate within the next week. So then we've got to think, how long is it between the start of testing and the release of an expansion? Well, in the past, it's mostly been between 160 and 180 days, which is kind of between 5 and 6 months. Now, the Legion test is actually a bit of an outlier. It was 281 days. I put this down to there being a weeks-long break due to holidays, but also there was a large test of classes that was sort of slowly rolled out over a good number of months. Secondly, the Legion test, if it was only 180 days, it would have put the expansion launching right in the middle of summer. And this kind of leads me on to the next point. AAA games do not tend to release in the summer months. You generally see releases clustering around the period between September and December. Why is this? Well, to cut a long story short, numbers indicate that if you launch your game when people are supposedly outside, enjoying the summer, that, it doesn't really work out that well. We can, however, use this information to quite easily work out the Battle for Azeroth release date. So let's imagine the beta test begins next Tuesday, 180 days later, that would be the 6th of August. This is likely not when it would be released. The Legion launch was on the 30th of August, so I would imagine basically, we're going to see the same thing again. So yes, 30th of August 2018 is my estimated release date for this expansion. Now, what does that mean for us? Well, the 30th of August is 204 days away from now. Those who pre-order have got allied races to enjoy until then, and if we're to assume that the BFA pre-patch schedule is the same as the Legion one, then that would be the 18th of July for the pre-patch. Now, one surprising part of the data mining is that it actually shows we'll get another artifact skin, so I've got to wonder if this will tie into the events of Silithis that are currently unfolding. And speaking of that, the Seething Shore Battleground has actually yet to launch, and Blizzard have been oddly quiet about it, but I believe that's within the next few weeks. Overall, though, it does not seem like we're going to have a painful content drought to deal with. However, much of that's because Blizzard have been damn smart and played their cards right. The Antor's Raid, of course, was done as a part of 7.3 development and then released 3 months later. When we look at the things that happened since then, it's stuff like the level scaling system. That's a system. It's not a massive amount of content that takes up a lot of the time of the artists and the level designers, so really a lot of it's because Blizzard played their cards right. Now, they also confirmed the 7th allied race to be added, the Draenor Orcs. I've got to assume this means Gromash's crew and not the Outland-based Mag'har Orcs because of how Ian worded it. Now, this would give players the long-wanted option of brown-skinned Orcs. This is important because lore-wise, they're the guys who did not drink the demon blood, which kind of sets them apart. This does sort of match with Orc clan armor being datamined on the alpha. Perhaps that's their heritage armor set. Now, you do have to think about the Draenor Draenei then. We already have the Lightforged, so it doesn't make much sense for them to be there, but I suppose many want to see Yrel. Now that Christy Golden is on board, I would be interested in seeing a good writer handle that character. But that's what we know about the allied races. So let's quickly cover the game system updates. Ian Hazzikostas talked about how they went too far with spec identity over class identity with Legion. A great example of this was many hunter specs losing their traps, and survival hunters inexplicably forgetting how to pick up a bow, the latter of which is something that will be receiving attention in Battle for Azeroth. Overall, I think that having class identity be the larger focus is a good idea, and it kind of ties into my next point. It seems like Blizzard want to go a little bit more old school with some class designs. Now, in an MMO framework, teamwork is created by players having different toolkits and the challenge of putting those together effectively. As time has went on, they feel like they've homogenized a bit too much, with Ian saying, as an example, a Mage Blink. It doesn't really have a unique identity because so many specs have it. And the same, as an example, goes for AoE stuns, which are quite common. What they want to do is focus in on what a class can do that is really unique and different. This will mean that having a diverse team composition in terms of available utility is an important part of making your group, more so than it is now. One benefit here is that that it involves classes being useful outside of just their throughput. Now, doing this on a class scale and not a spec scale seems like the best way to me. This does mean, though, that some of us will lose a few toys, and in principle, I'm fine with that. World of Warcraft is a group game. It cannot compete with other games in terms of its action, in terms of its graphics, or in terms of the inherent fun of the toy that lies at the heart of its control and its inputs. It competes on teamwork, though. Now, for another example, let's take Rainbow Six Siege. Each one of its characters has a really unique mechanic, and there's kind of no jack of all trades. Why? Well, it's because it's a game that's not about solo domination, it's a game about teamwork. The bitter pill to swallow here, though, is that it's inherently fun to dominate. To have an answer to every question, to be overpowered. It's Diablo 3 as an example. Striking a balance here is really challenging, and with all of this said, it's very possible Blizzard could cock the whole thing up. It's fine to talk about philosophy and all that stuff, but what matters is how it's translated into the actual game and what you get in your hands, so this is something I'll be skeptical of, and I'll be monitoring very closely in the Battle for Azeroth testing process. Titan Forging was also brought up, and here's pretty much what you need to know. Weapons can't Titan Forge. They can Warforge. Now, Titan Forging is just the name that's applied to a very high bonus item level roll, with Warforging being used for smaller item level bumps like 5 or 10. This is great, in my view, as many specs have damage sort of tied to weapon damage and item level, so it's good that that's reined in a little bit. Azeroth gear still is not going to be Warforged or Titan Forged, and broadly Ian said that they want to tone the system down in comparison to Legion, so it shouldn't be as common a part of the endgame. Overall, I think that the combination of Azeroth gear not being on Titan Forging and weapons only being Warforging should, I think more so than with Legion, incentivize the difficulty of the content that you do, rather than just trying to get as many rolls of the dice as you can. So I think that should be a more healthy state for the game to be in overall. And then the final thing is that we did hear a little bit about patch 8.1 from, I believe, J. Allen Brack. It's not really that much. He basically said that it was quite exciting how it came out how 7.1 came out so quickly, but that they felt it was great content and a lot of it got lost in the mix, especially with Karazhan. So in the future, when he was talking about the Battle for Azeroth patch cycle, essentially Legion is the model. They'll probably just have 8.1 be a little bit later than 7.1 was comparatively. And I think that's kind of fair. They definitely could have delayed that a few weeks, and I don't think anyone would have really noticed that much. But there you go, that is an update on the Battle for Azeroth release date, some of their philosophy and class design, Titan Forging and all that stuff, and of course the 7th allied race being confirmed. Of course, if you want a little bit more allied race speculation, I do have a video on that, so you can check that out. But really, that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.